The hard rains of the Arab Spring now batter both tyrants and citizens alike. Will the result be freedom or just more fear? From the beginning of Egypt's uprising, author and columnist Mona Eltahawy has been Connect's tour guide of the Middle East's pro-democracy movement. She joins us again today from New York. Mona, I think the last time you and I spoke, it was, in the thick of things in terms of what was going on in Cairo. And all the talk then was that this was going to lead to so much more and a galvanizing of that whole region. But, some would say that the so-called Arab Spring didn't really turn into an Arab summer, that real change hasn't yet happened. What do you think?
Well, it's good to be back on air with you, Paul, and I have to disagree with those who question the direction of the uprisings and the revolutions, because I think what's happening in the region is absolutely astounding. From seeing Egypt's former dictator in a cage being treated like an ordinary defendant facing justice in Cairo today, to watching as Syrians in their hundreds of thousands so courageously rise up against the butchery of the Assad regime, to seeing how Bahrain had to desperately call on to Saudi Arabia to intervene against its own uprising. I think what's been happening in the region is absolutely unprecedented and very exciting.
But you've still got the military, in no small way, running the show in Egypt. You've got Islamists rising in Tunisia. I mean, in Bahrain, they didn't even have it on TV today. The scenes out of Cairo today weren't even on TV because the state clamped down. I mean, how far can the changes go, given that leaders may go, but there are other sort of pillars of the regime still in place in a lot of places?
Well, I think the fact that they kept Mubarak's trial off television in Bahrain speaks volumes, because they recognize how inspirational and infectious these scenes are. Watching Ben Ali flee from Tunisia, watching Mubarak being forced to step down and now being tried in a court publicly on live television, that is acting as a much-needed boost of inspiration to the revolutions across the region. But of course, the regimes in the region are also terrified and fearing that they might be next. But I just came back from Cairo, where I spent many nights in Tahrir Square to support the sit-in. And it's because of that sit-in, and it's because of people power, it's because of the pressure of people on the street, that Mubarak is in that cage being treated as a defendant. Because, yes, the Mubarak regime has not been entirely dismantled. The revolution in Egypt continues. But because of people power, Mubarak was forced to step down. Because of people's continued pressure on the military that runs the country, that same military that are basically buddies of Mubarak from the armed forces, were forced to put their former friend, current friend even, on trial. If it hadn't been for people pressure and that empowerment, it would not have happened in Egypt today.
Do you think there's any risk of backward steps in that region, or is, I don't know, pick your metaphor, is the toothpaste out of the tube at this point? You know what I mean? Like, can things go backward, or is it only forward?
I think it's absolutely impossible for the region to go back to what it was. There is no way that such inspiration and scenes of people's empowerment. Someone in Cairo last week was saying, as we sat down in Tahrir Square, during the sit-in, he said the Egyptian people have woken up from a coma. The entire region has woken up from a coma, and it's impossible to go back. And so in Syria, where Assad is brutally massacring people, yet they continue to rise up again and again, that in itself speaks volumes. In Libya, where they continue the struggle against Gaddafi, again, you're seeing a people who refuse to be bowed, who refuse to return home silently. And I think every single country is watching and being affected, not just in the region, but across the world. Because in that cage with Mubarak today isn't just all the tyrants in the region who hopefully will face justice from their people, but also all the policies of Western governments, be they in North America or Europe, across the world, who propped up tyrants like Mubarak and other tyrants in the region. All of their hypocritical policies are on trial in Egypt today, and there's no way that the region will go back to what it was.
Mona, it's always a pleasure. I have no doubt we'll talk again. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.